And I do invite you all to make your way to the stage as we move into a dynamic and highly anticipated segment, the CEO panel discussion, Stewards of Power, Bridging Vision and Results. Now, this conversation brings together leaders who are not just talking strategy, but living it. And at this time, I'm going to hand over to Mr. George Davis.
Thank you, Talia. Good morning. All right. I'll take that. So what will happen this morning is we'll have individual presentations, and then we'll have a discussion thereafter. We hope to make it engaging, and there is no rush for my presenters, except the governor has a major 11 a.m., which he should meet comfortably. So we're not in any trouble of him leaving early. So I want to say good morning again. This CEO panel is looking at four main things under a theme. The theme, Stewards of Power, Bridging Vision and Results. Looking at executing and reporting what matters most, aligning tactical results with the vision, the question, what makes me a good middle steward, and of course, looking at the long game. And you know, the discussion around the long game is said to be very significant, because never before in my lifetime, certainly, has the world been in more flux than we have now. Uncertainty abounds, things change daily, and the certainty which undergirds decision making and which provides the basis for a vision to be articulated. That plinth is not theirs. It's sand. So it is very hard to visualize a company's next step for the next 5, 10, 15 years, given the uncertainty that abounds now. And that's where the skill comes in, and experience of the people who lead, not just the senior executives, but the middle managers, and how they inform policy direction, how they ideate around vision creation, and how all these things align for the betterment of the people who work in the companies themselves, and of course, the countries in which these companies do business. I have a diverse panel. Natacha Marzolf, country representative for the Inter-American Development Bank Group in Jamaica. She is international, of course. She speaks 4 languages very comfortably, and she brings that international flair. Frank James has been, well, he's the new man, not new boy, new man at GraceKennedy. Governor Byles, on the other hand, is very close to retirement, and I overheard him saying that, you know, he's looking forward to the time to run off so he can proceed into retirement again. Not that he's not enjoying the job, but he's done so much work over time. We won't begrudge him not having the pressures of leading an institution such as the Bank of Jamaica. We have Anne-Marie Walters, whose story is fascinating, and I commend her story to you for you to read it. It serves as motivation for individuals, yourself and those with whom you interact. When we hear Unicomer, we think courts, which is a good thing, because courts is one of the august brands in Jamaica. But her story, coming from where she started at courts to now being Unicomer's first woman CEO, it is absolutely fascinating, and it just shows you what ambition, drive, and vision can do for an individual. And again, I say I commend her story for you to read. Simple Google search, and you can catch up on how Anne-Marie has moved from that point to this point. All right, let's get right into it. Natacha will open the inning, so she'll make her presentation. You want to do? Just speak, okay. So speak then, well, I invite you to make your opening remarks then.
Good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting IDB Group to be part of this very important conference. My name is Natacha Marzolf. I have been the country representative for the Inter-American Development Bank Group since October 2024. And for those who might not know IDB Group has 3 different arms. There is the public sector part of the IDB, which basically works with the government. The governor for the IDB is Minister Williams, Minister of Finance and the Public Service. Then we have our private sector arm, which is IDB Invest, which is the part of IDB that finances private sector companies, mostly large companies doing debt and equity. And then we have IDB Lab, which is our startup incubator financing arm that really works with innovation and scaling. I am originally French. I've spent most of my career in Washington, D.C., doing energy and climate financing. I've worked both in the private sector part of the IDB group and the public sector part of the IDB group. And I am really looking forward to sharing my journey and hopefully also sharing some insights to help you grow in your respective businesses. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Natacha. Anne-Marie, you have your own microphone, yeah.
Morning, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Walters. I heard your introduction and really want to say it is a pleasure being here. First thing I want to also say, I enjoy sitting in my own sofa for the first time. Thanks to Courts and Ashley for the support for sponsorship here. Taking us through in terms of middle management and what it is that makes a good middle manager steward is very important as we traverse through this communication today. And so it is interesting when we look at where we begin and where we end. I know Richard Byles is looking forward to retire, but I'm sure several persons are looking forward to retire, but when retirement comes, we get confused because we stop living the life of running in the treadmill sometimes, and it is a difficult situation. But middle managers are really significant and important to any organization, and building an organization is something that we must continue to, I would say, aspire to, yes? An organization is really the country's lifeblood, how it is that you operate, how you maintain and deliver throughout your lifetime. And so getting that middle managers to that level where they're sitting and how it is that they support what they're doing is also important. So how it is that we navigate that going forward is important. And I share a small story before moving on. I went to a conference in 2018, and the keynote speaker was actually Richard Branson. And he spoke about middle managers and really how key they are to organization. And he spoke about how he recruited middle managers within his organization. And while I'm not asking anyone here to do what he did, it was very interesting how he recruited. He positioned middle managers or senior leaders on two fronts. He said he recruits based on attitude and mindset. Mindset he can attend to when he's doing the interview, he's able to get through mindset. But attitude, he's not able to pick up most times because people can deliver what you call an attitude that is real and how it is that you get to that attitude. And he said two things about the mindset and attitude, but the most important one was really how it is that he delivered an attitude. And one of the things he said, what he did, a real life example, is that most people that he's bringing in is coming from overseas. So doing that now, he's the one operating as the driver to pick up that person from the airport. And he dressed in such a way that people would look at him and say, it's an old man, tattered looking. When he dressed that way and he greets the middle manager or senior manager in, most times that reaction that he gets tells him that there's no need to go further with the employment. Because that attitude is based on, and we all get caught in it at some point. We assess people based on how they look from the outward appearance, and that sometimes is a devastating blow for most people. And so he says, when he is interviewing, he does the mindset first, and then he focuses on the attitude. And the attitude is the last one that gets you through the door. So that is important in terms of when you look at how middle managers position in life. That is very important in terms of how we look at those things. And that attitude, he was sharing with us a real example where he was down to 3 candidates. And the way in which he was treated on the when he was a driver, and he tried to open doors and, be courteous. The courtesy was not extended by the other 2 candidates. So he said it was quick for him to make that decision. He wasn't going any further. So it's important for us to recognize that as leaders, as middle managers, we're always being looked at. We're looked at from the individuals that report to us. We're looked at our senior levels, and we're looked at as our peers. And how it is that we come across or deliver in terms of our attitude becomes very important in what we do. So that is a message, and how it is that we move forward is important. What's also very important is that as middle managers, we ought to be growth mindset we must have. And that begins how it is that we think, what it is that we see as that mindset that we need to take forward, going forward. And the other one is that, which is dear to my heart, is a people mindset. We don't get things done through process, we get it done through people. And how it is that we treat people, and people feel when we are leading. People feel off their leaders' energy. Sometimes if you recognize, even in a church, when the pastor decides to leave, he takes an army of people with him, because people are there in the church for the pastor, not necessarily for the church. And so as leaders, we ought to be cotton and candid and recognize that we are people leaders first. Even though you may be managing processes, you're running a factory, whatever you're doing, you are dealing with people. And it is important to be people-oriented. It's also the mindset that needs to be also reset, is that even though you're working for a company or an organization, what is important and valuable is that you also must have a business mindset. Always have an ownership mindset, that mindset that sets you apart from others, so that at some train in life, whether or not it's within the same space that you are operating, that you become the leader, or you decide to set up your own organization, you're going to be leading people in any shape or form. So start in terms of training that mindset to be an ownership mindset that you take forward as middle managers. So in terms of what I would want to leave with the team as it relates to how one should focus on mindset, attitude, and how it is that that sets you apart from all the others that's within your space, is that you must demonstrate, and it may sound cliche, a very positive attitude, right, as a leader. Leadership matters, and so you must demonstrate, really, a leadership mindset. How you think. How do you think? What it is that really that craves you. When you get the thinking right, and the intention, the ownership, and the focus, then you just don't manage people, you actually elevate people. And that's really the message that I really want to share with the team as it relates to mindset and how it is that you middle managers really need to curve that area in terms of how you think, how your attitude turn up, and that you're always, I was reminded by my late former CEO, Richard Cole, reminded me at some point, we are all on stage. When someone is on stage and you're acting, if you pick your nose, they see you, right? Anything you do, you get that attention. But you must remember while on stage that while you're acting, people are looking on. They're looking on from sideways, they're looking on from above, and then you're leading people. So always be cognizant of that as middle managers and ensure that your leadership can always maintain and stand to the scrutiny that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Frank?
Thanks, George. Good morning, everyone. It is certainly a pleasure to be here. Let me thank Dr. Jacqueline Cook-Lloyd and her team for inviting me. I am particularly pleased to be speaking to the stewards of power. Yes, that's you, in case you didn't know. You guys in this room are the stewards of power. In case you thought it was those on this stage, no, it's you. Well, Governor Byles is in his own class of power on his own. But apart from that, you guys are the stewards of power. And so it's really great to be here to share with you this morning. And for me, power is simple. Power is the ability to get things done. The ability to get things done. It's not the job title, it's not the position in the org chart, it is the ability to turn vision into results each and every single day. So when I'm in a room at GraceKennedy with a team of managers and we're talking about where we want to go and we're assessing the challenges and the opportunities, the person who raises their hand and says, Frank, I'll get that done, and goes out there and does it, that's the most powerful person in the room for me. So I want to start there with the letter that you see on your screen, A. I hope it's there, yep. And for me, A stands for accountability. Now, visions by their very nature are audacious, they're long-term, they're high-level, and they involve all parts of the company. As middle managers, you need to take ownership for converting this long-term, high-level, inspirational, nice-sounding vision into actual results each and every day. And I want to suggest to do this, you must first ask yourself this question. What is my team or unit responsible for in achieving this vision? What's our role in this? What do we own? What are we accountable for? And coming out of that, you should get a handful of strategic objectives, is the fancy word we like to use for it, or strategic priorities. But it's really saying, what do I contribute? What does my team contribute to this broader vision? Now, of course, just knowing what you're accountable for doesn't result in accountability. At GK, we don't speak about accountability unless we talk about measurable targets. So you have those objectives, but you now have to turn those into clear, measurable targets. So each strategic objective has to have its KPIs, key performance indicators. And you want those indicators not just to be telling you what has happened in the past, but to tell you that you are on the right track. So you want indicators that are also leading indicators. I'll give you an example. You've all heard of the GK1 app. Just say yes, whether you've heard of it or not. Thank you, very good. And so when we started this app, clearly, ultimately what you want is a lot of people using the app and then revenue being generated from it. But that wasn't what we started measuring. What we measured was the repeat usage of the app. Because we recognized that if that repeat usage was high, it meant we were meeting a need for our customers, and the numbers were going to follow. And that's exactly what happened. We're getting repeat usage of 85%, which is very high for apps. If you think of the many apps you have gone on once and never go back to. And inevitably, the numbers started low, and then they just took off geometrically. So you have to find the right indicators, and you can use AI to help you see, what's the right indicator for this. But most importantly, every member of the team must understand how that metric impacts the strategic objective and how the strategic objective impacts the vision. And so that leads me to the next letter I want to introduce to you. So that was A, accountability. And the next letter I want to introduce is T, which for me stands for togetherness. And that's about the team. That's about achieving results through people. I heard Anne-Marie say it, that we achieve results through people. And achieving results through people having a shared purpose. As managers, you sit at a very important intersection. It's the intersection between leadership's intent and frontline execution. What leaders want to happen and how it actually happens. And that intersection is very important. So to get effective execution, each team member must be able to say, how does the work that I do support the strategic objective and how it is measured? So it's not just understanding the role of the unit, but each individual within that unit has to understand how what they are doing on a day-to-day basis is impacting the wider strategic objective. And as managers, you're the one who needs to make that link for your team members. You need to make that link between the individual tasks that you're asking them to carry out and the team objectives. Why am I doing this? What is the objective? What are we trying to achieve? Again, at GraceKennedy, how we achieve this is through something called cascading. And that means that my KPIs, which are the performance objectives that determine how I get rewarded, so it's very important, those objectives are directly tied to the vision, and then I cascade them to different members of my team, depending on their responsibility. And then they, in turn, cascade those objectives to different members of their team. And it keeps going right down to the last person in the organization, so that everybody understands how I affect the strategic objective. And that brings the team together. Now, to keep the team together requires another important element, which is communication. And again, who is very responsible for that? The middle managers. Yes, you have some high-level communication coming from the top, but in meetings, in performance reviews, in everyday interaction, it is the middle managers who are going to have to constantly articulate the strategic vision, the objectives, the KPIs, and make it exciting and engaging for the team. And most importantly, demonstrate it in your own actions. So it's one thing to be out there saying it, but your own actions have to demonstrate support for these objectives. So the decisions that you make and your team sees you make, the investments that you support, the business cases that you put forward, the feedback you give to your team must all tie back to the vision. Vision doesn't come alive just because it's in a nice presentation with a pretty screen like the one I have here, but it comes alive when middle managers translate it into shared goals, into collaboration, and a mindset that we all win together or not at all. So togetherness is very important. Another important element of togetherness is actually having that right team and making sure that you have the right people in the right place doing the right things. And you, again, are responsible for making sure that you have people who are challenging you, who are bringing different perspectives, and ultimately who raise the bar. And so that takes me to my next letter, E, which stands for excellence, as we talk about raising the bar. It is not just enough to deliver results. You have to deliver excellent results. The world is too competitive to settle for mediocrity. Now, I'm not saying excellence is about perfection, but it does require a level of discipline to be clear on our priorities, having the judgment to stop doing things that don't move the needle towards the vision and start doing the right things, and to really manage how we, meaning your entire team, use their time. This is where you come in again. Now you have to remember your leaders are going to have all kinds of ideas, right? There are going to be multiple priorities coming at you, but you don't have the luxury to just pass all of those onto your team because you are accountable for execution each day, each week, each month. So you have to filter that. I remember my former group CEO would come to me and say, Frank, this is a priority. And I say, okay, and you start getting it done. And 2 days later, he would say, Frank, this is priority 1, which means it's higher than the one I told you 2 days ago. And then a few days later, he'd say, Frank, this is priority 1. I think you get the idea where it's going, right? So all of these will be coming, and it was now for me to filter that and determine how I was going to translate it into bite-sized pieces for my team to actually be able to execute. So that's part of your role as well. Important in excellence is prioritizing. There are just too many factors, too many moving parts, so you have to be able to prioritize. The other thing for execution, have the right tools, have the right technology. AI is a big thing today. Final letter in the interest of time I want to share with you is M, which is metal. Be very assured, the space between vision and results is not neat, and it is not a straight path. You're going to have markets changing, plans colliding with reality, people resisting change, and the list goes on. I'll share a brief story with you as I wrap. When I became Group CFO in 2012, very shortly after that, we had the National Debt Exchange of Jamaica. So I had just become responsible for the finances of this group, and the country is about to restructure its debt. And then I became CEO of the food business in 2019, and shortly after that we had COVID in 2020, the worst pandemic in our lifetime. And then I became Group CEO in 2025, and shortly after that, Hurricane Melissa, the worst hurricane in the history of Jamaica and the third in the history of the world. And we entered into the most geopolitically tense period in our generation. Now, I know some of you are saying, boy, Frank, I think you are the problem, right? But the truth is, I am not the common factor. Crisis is. Crisis is the common factor. That story is not unique to me. And what the world is showing us is that crises are going to come closer and faster and more intense. So that is going to be our new normal. And the way we are able to operate within that environment is going to decide if we succeed or we don't. So I want to say to you that that is where metal comes in. Because the vision doesn't change. The vision didn't change after NDX, it didn't change after COVID or after Hurricane Melissa, but the tactics had to change. The actions had to change. The strategies had to change. So metal is about staying the course when things get difficult, being calm under pressure. It is about being bold and courageous and taking the tough calls and changing what is not working and sometimes stepping into decisions without perfect information. So we live in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, and it takes metal to achieve tactical results. And I leave you with this, that what is required to align results with vision is togetherness in how we build and lead our teams, excellence in how we execute, accountability for what we deliver, and metal to push forward in the face of volatility and uncertainty. And when you bring those four together, you get a team that is aligned, focused, and capable of delivering results that actually move the needle towards the vision. I wish you all the best as you form your teams at your respective entities. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Clearly you're a man for crisis times and for a challenge. I wonder what your next appointment will cause to happen on the global scale. Or maybe we don't want to find out, eh? The BOJ Governor, Richard Byles.
Good morning. Although I'm the Governor of Bank of Jamaica, this morning I want to speak to you more on a personal level. So no interest rates, no foreign exchange business, no inflation. Let me begin with a confession. I continue to be surprised when successful people say they always envisage themselves becoming the CEO of a big company. I have never had those thoughts. Not once in my career did I sit back and picture a destination. Looking back now, it almost seems as if I had no ambition. But here is what I did have. I had an absolute commitment to doing whatever task or job that was in front of me to my very best of ability. To perfection, if I could manage it. Very nearsighted in a way, not looking at the horizon at all, but looking at the work. I found that getting a job done excellently opens doors and creates opportunities that vision and big picture ambition simply do not provide. In fact, you could say that doing a great job creates luck for the future. Not the mystical kind of luck, but the kind that arrives when someone with power who has watched your work closely decided it is of quality, and they open a door for you that you did not even know existed. Many, many years ago, I became interested in the stock market. And I was still working with the government because I was an economist. I had just done my master's in economics. And I went to interview Marzolf, who some of you may know was the chairman of Pan-Jamaican Investment Trust, listed company on the stock exchange. And after 1 hour of an interview with him about his company, he turned to me and said, "Richard, I want you to come and work for me. I have a small bank that I want you to run and grow." So I was shocked. Where is this coming from? And he said to me, "You may not know, but you wrote a study on a cattle business 2 years ago, and I read it. And I disagreed with your conclusion, but I loved how you argued your case." And on the basis of that, Marzolf offered me this job, and that was my entry into the private sector in Jamaica. Every opportunity that has opened up for me has come through that door, not through ambition, not through positioning, not through telling the right people I was ready, but through work, through the quiet, unglamorous daily discipline of doing the thing in front of me with everything I had. And something unexpected also happened as a result of that practice. This ability that I developed to focus down on the challenge at hand gave me a deep sense of inner confidence. A confidence that anything I genuinely committed to, I could master. So when opportunities that required a real change of course presented themselves, I was not paralyzed by the newness of it. I was not disturbed by the change of direction. I was in fact excited. I believed I could learn it. I believed I could do it well. Remember, I was an economist working with the government. Became manager of this small bank. 2 years later, Marzolf called me to his office and said, "I want you to run the whole group." Oh, this is a group that had interest in trading, hardware and lumber, agriculture, property. Many buildings on Knutsford Boulevard belong to them, and in manufacturing. And I know I've been faced with this possibility of being the group CEO. 10 years later, after Panjam became very successful, I organized a merger of its financial interest with Life for Jamaica, and they invited me to become the CEO of Life for Jamaica, which was the largest life insurance company in Jamaica. I accepted that. And for the next 10 years, I built Life of Jamaica. It became Sagicor. We bought Blue Cross. We bought Royal Bank of Canada in Jamaica. We grew Sagicor into, I believe, the second largest company on the stock exchange. And then whilst doing that, we went through the debt crisis that Frank referred to. And the private sector asked me to head the Economic Program Oversight Committee. So I'm back in the world of economics now, and I accepted that also. Then I thought I retired in 2019, only to be asked to become governor of the Bank of Jamaica. And again, I accepted. So why am I making all these twists and turns? It's because I have the confidence that I can do it by buckling down and doing the work at hand. So confidence, check. A commitment to excellence, check. What is the third ingredient? The third ingredient is critical. It is the support of people. Specifically, the people who know the technical aspects of the work as well as you, or even better than you do. Without this final ingredient, you will be an efficient individual. You may even be a very impressive individual, but you will not be successful on a large scale, because large-scale success is never individual. It always is collective. To leverage the capability of the people around you, you need two things. You need their respect, and you need their trust. None of those things come from authority. All of those things are earned. They come from how you make people feel. You have to be respectful of their talents, encouraging of their efforts, and willing to reward and award them for their contribution. I learned this especially when I moved to Life of Jamaica, where I was managing 600 people. 400 of them were insurance salesmen, and you know their ego is big, and you have to manage them. I had been a competitor to these people for many years when I was over at Panjam. I had sat across the table from them in the marketplace. But through the merger with Panjam, I was now their leader. I was on their side. And I was, as you know, CEO there. So the transition could have gone badly, of course. The fact that it did not came down to one thing. I led with genuine respect for what they knew and for what they had built. I did not arrive with the arrogance of an outsider who thinks the new broom sweeps clean. I arrived as a student of what was already excellent and as an architect of what could be better. This is where I think a lot of good middle managers stumble. They were great technicians. They were promoted because of the quality of their output as individuals. That individual excellence got them the title, but then they failed to make the critical transition from being great at the work to being great at leading people who do the work. And it is entirely understandable. Nobody taught them how to make that transition. The skills that made them excellent as individuals, precision, personal discipline, the ability to work long and hard, the focus of getting it right, those very skills can become liabilities when you are managing a team. Because now the job is not to do it yourself, the job is to create the conditions for others to do it excellently. That requires a completely different orientation. It requires you to find satisfaction not in your own output, but in that of others. It requires you to give away the work that you thought you knew best and you trusted yourself most in. You have to give it away to somebody else to do. It requires you to be genuinely interested in other person's growth and development. As a leader, the job is no longer to do it yourself. The job is to create the conditions for others to do it excellently. If you in the room today are middle managers, as you mostly are, the most important thing you can develop is not another technical skill. It is not another certification. It is your ability to see people on your team very clearly, to name what is excellent in them specifically, and to give them room to grow and to protect them well enough that they can do their best work. That is a transition, and it is one of the hardest things leadership can ask of a person. I want to close with a thought about ambition, because I began by telling you I never had the conventional kind. What I've come to believe is that there are two kinds of ambition. There is a kind that is focused on the destination, the title, the corner office, the name on the door. And there is a kind that is focused on the quality of what you are building right here and now, today, with the people and the resources and the responsibility that are actually in front of you. The first kind produces people who are always slightly elsewhere, always measuring their current position against where they want to get, always a little impatient with the present because it is not yet the future. The second kind produces something different. It produces people who are genuinely present, who are doing the work with everything they have, not because of where it might lead, but because the work itself deserves it. And those people, I have found, tend to end up in remarkable places. Not because they planned it, but because they earned it, one fully committed piece of work at a time. So I would say to you all this morning, play the long game. Be excellent at what is in front of you. Build people around you with real commitment, and trust that doing that day after day will open doors you cannot even see at this time. It has worked for me, and I believe it will work for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thanks to Frank, Anne-Marie, and Natacha. We have just about 7 minutes left in this panel, and I want to use it by asking Natacha to just give me some feedback on the essence of Richard's message about that thing that causes middle managers to stumble. It boils down to developing the ability to manage people even as you manage processes.
Sure. So just thinking about what you said, let me just take a bit of a step back, because you don't become middle managers just overnight, right? Mm-hmm. Middle managers is you have worked your way up to get there. And I think there are several elements that you have brought with you as you go through your own journey. The first one, where I believe a middle manager and an upper manager, or executive, seasoned professional is successful, is from the beginning of their career, they surrounded themselves with people who supported them, people who helped them grow, people who were mentors to them, people with whom they established a trusting relationship. And I think this is absolutely key, Because when you surround yourself with people who are here to lift you up, the only way is up. I also think a middle manager becomes a middle manager because he or she has been able to take risks. Risks in getting outside of your comfort zone. Risks in learning something new. Risks that are often an unknown as you do your own work with your team. And I don't think that you can become a successful middle manager unless you're comfortable with taking risks. The third part that I think is also important is as you move up in your career, one defines its own values and its own principles. For me, hard work, result orientation, being able to build a reputation where people rely on you. And as I think one of our speakers said, you know the person who fixes things, not the person who comes and tells you, oh, we cannot do this, or we cannot do that. And as you ask me this question about middle managers and how you work with people and processes, your success as a middle manager is the direct result of your team's success. Let me repeat it. Your success is the direct success of your team's collective work. I think sometimes, and this has not really been said, is when there are people, there are politics. We all know that. We all live that through our work. And a very, very pioneered woman, CEO of a private sector company, said once, be the driving force, be the positive force. Don't be part of the gossip in the office. And I think that's very important, because being the driving force is how you elevate not only your work, your visibility, but your team. And maybe this is something we don't talk enough about. How do you manage the balance with your personal life and your professional life? I see a lot of women in this room, and a lot of women that I'm sure have to balance the personal life and the professional lives, being good to your parents, being a good sibling, being a good spouse, raising children. There's still a large gap between men and women in that space, particularly in the business arena. And I think that to be a good middle manager, and as you said, become the steward that bridges from vision to action, is you need to have a balanced work life. And that really comes if you also take good care of yourself first. And that's very, very, very important. My colleague talked about mindset. I will also mention personal balance has a lot to do with your own psychological safety, your professional and mental health, and surrounding yourself with good people. So when you ask me about processes and about persons, processes is just the means to do something. This is the framework you work with. But your biggest asset will always be your people. Always be your people. And I know in my office, since I've started here in Jamaica, one of my biggest objectives has been to enable people in my office to grow, to be promoted, to move to a different office, to take on something new. And there's no greater reward from not only a professional perspective, but a personal one, to just see people grow, expand their wings, and fly high. So what I want to tell you today, as you move up the chain in your respective organizations, make sure you extend an arm to the people who are struggling, the people who look up to you as a mentor, and really be that driving force in your organization that helps you become more visible and where you really share the success of what is to come.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. You can keep the applause going because we're at the end. I I want to thank my panelists, and I could tell that you were engaged. I just want to leave this with you. If you look around in our country and you look at the companies that are successful and their record of outstanding leadership at every level, middle management level, executive level, and even on the shop floor, you clearly see that there is a pattern. You'd be hard-pressed, any of you, to name me a company that is successful, that is not well-led. And you'd also be hard-pressed to show me a company that is well-led, that is not successful. It's not for nothing that is the case. And I want to say to middle managers as well, that you are managing, you are not ruling. And some people, unfortunately, you get the titles, you get the accolades based on your technical skill and your application over time, and you move into a new position of authority, of power, and you believe it is your time to rule. No, it is never your time to rule. No monarchs are in companies. We are managers facilitating people to self-actualize, to give of their best, and for the collective efforts to redound to the benefit of the individuals in the company. The individual is at the center of everything, as all my speakers have said. The individuals of the company are the ones who the collective effort is intended to benefit. And of course, when that happens, the company benefits. You've been a good audience. Our time is up. Good morning. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a panel discussion. Another round of applause for our panelists, please. And of course, George, our moderator, I am sure you might just have a question or two. This is our CEO panel discussion. Do we have any questions? I have time for 2 questions. No, okay, I see one hand here. We have microphones. I have 2 questions. Okay, so just head to the microphone that is closest to you. I think we have another microphone on that side, but I have two questions already. George, I'm going to allow you.
Please identify yourself, sir, and direct your question to the panelist of your choice.
Morning.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I am Trey Williams from Sagicor.
Yes.
And I would just like to add to the governor his quote that was posted. He was saying that doing your job well, and I would like to add that Bruce Lee had a similar quote where he said he doesn't fear the man who does 10,000 different kicks, but the man who does one kick 10,000 times. And my question is for the CEO for GraceKennedy. I would like you to tell me a situation from which your metal was tested and how you navigated through that.
Thank you. Frank? Turn it on, yeah.
Mic check.
Good,
yeah?
You're good now, yeah.
So I thought I told you 5 of them. Was NDX, and the list goes on. But I mean, certainly I think the most recent one that comes to mind is Hurricane Melissa, which really was very devastating for our country, but created a significant challenge for the company. And the first thing we did is we started with our people. And that was the #1 priority, and we had to make that very clear to everybody. That first thing was that we needed to make sure our people were okay. And there were 681 persons that we had to account for, because there are 681 people in the communities that were most affected by the hurricane. And that was our first priority, to make sure that every one of them was accounted for. And I'm pleased to say that every one of them was accounted for, all 681. The second thing is that we realized that we had a responsibility to feed the nation. This was no longer about the bottom line of the company. This was about a shared responsibility, a shared purpose, and I spoke earlier about shared purpose. And that galvanized the company around this need to be able to feed the nation. And it meant that our distribution center opened the very next day after the hurricane. It meant that people who were in our banks came out even though they were in areas where their homes had been destroyed because the communities needed to get access to cash. And I started going around the island in the very immediate days after the hurricane and meeting with the team members, and was really very moved when I asked, when they were telling me their personal stories and their personal struggles, and I was saying, but you're out here at work with all of that, what's going on? And they said, the community needs us. And I think it was the ability to galvanize people around a shared purpose that allowed us to get through that. And so I'm happy to say that as a company, we were able to contribute significantly to Hurricane Melissa and be able to get the company at the same time back up and running within days of the hurricane across the entire group. So that's the example I'll share.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Avril Ashley from Sagicor Bank. My question is also for Mr. Frank James. So one of the tenets of being a steward of power is aligning tactical results with vision and cascading these tasks, these activities across your team. Sometimes the vision is lost. Team members will be doing tasks and they don't really know why they're doing it. So my question is, as a leader, how can we ensure that the goal, that common goal, that vision is always clear?
Thank you.
Repetition. It's so funny, this thing called communication. It seems so simple. You go to one meeting, you did your presentation, and you think everybody understands. No, every meeting it has to be said again. And then you have to make it meaningful for them. It has to be exciting, it has to be engaging. We believe at GraceKennedy in a purpose. So it's not just revenue and profits, but we have said our purpose is enriching lives through trusted food and financial services. So people can connect to that and then let them understand how their job actually impacts it. Very importantly, it has to impact them personally. So your incentive systems have to be aligned, right? So we are very big on reward-based performance incentives, right? And so you need those incentives aligned because, face it, that's a big part of why we all come to work, to be compensated. So there are a number of things. There's the emotional, there's the purpose, there's giving purpose, there's just reinforcement communications, there's aligned incentives that's important, and also, as I said, leading by your own example. Because, I think one of us said it, we are always being watched. I think it was Anne-Marie. So as managers, as leaders, you're always being watched. Your team is watching you even when you don't think they're watching you. And so the way you behave and the way you act reinforces the message that you're saying. If you're just saying it, but you're not doing it, if you're not approving the things that go with it, if you're not supporting the behaviors that support the objectives, then the two don't align and they don't connect. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Squeezing one last one?
Yes,
Yes.
I'll be quick. Good day, I'm Chantal Perry from GraceKennedy. Good day, sir. All right, so mine is a quick question.
Is this a planted question?
Definitely, I'm actually going to throw mine out. So I'm so happy that Mr. Byles brought up the technical trap. I feel like a lot of middle managers can identify with that one because sometimes you're given a task and you're thinking, I can do this so much quicker, and in your mind you're like, I can do it better as well. So I'd just like to throw it out to anyone on the team. Can you give us an example where you had to get over that and how you navigate to transition well to the leaders that you are today?
All right. Amber, you want to go first and Richard? Okay.
Right, so that technical trap, I can really put myself in that shoes. So I give you a real example. I was asked in 2024 to lead a team, the interim managing director for the Belize country. And when I went first, the real life is that the people in Belize are real, I would say, humble, nice people. And I am trying to get execution done, put your strategy up, tell him where you really want to go, and we're working together. And I recognize that while I was in the back of my mind thinking, oh yes, I got this, and people were smiling, they were actually not doing. The execution wasn't really happening. And I said, okay, I'm not going to wait on you. I'm going to get some of this execution done. You're actually fooling yourself because it cannot be done without the people. So then I had to reset and come back again to say, what did I miss? Did I sell the vision well? Did I galvanize the people so that the people bought into the vision that I was trying to get them to deliver? And that was important because I thought, okay, if you're not getting it done, I'm going to get it done. Can't get that done on your own. You can't grow a business on your own. You really need people. And the moment you recognize that and be able to tap into what are some of the opportunities. We spoke about making the vision clear, that's one. Two, ensuring that the people buy in. There's something in it for me. When I took Belize business over in 2024, Belize was not profitable for 12 years. And in 1 year and 5 months, I made Belize the most profitable country in the Caribbean for the Unicomer group. That came with tenacity. It came with ensuring that people bought into the vision and then gave them a carrot that they would walk with. If we got this done, team, we all gonna celebrate with a bonus at the end of the year. Everybody was lined up.
Yeah.
And we all delivered. Yeah. So it's very important to get people to buy in and not thinking that you can do this job on your own.
Thank you. Yes. Richard, do you want to give it a shot before you go? Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Well, I think, yes.
Yeah, you're good now.
I think perhaps looking over my very long career, when I made a transition to Life of Jamaica, that has probably been a big break for me. Because I was more of a numbers person, a financial, tough guy, very hard when it came to numbers and performance and bottom line when I was at Panjam, because I was transforming what was a big but not very profitable organization into a tighter, more profitable one. And then I found myself at Life of Jamaica, which is really a people company. It's all about selling insurance, and that is a very personal type of experience. So I have to face up now to 400 salesmen who are really the dons of that company. I had to really stop and say to myself, what do I need to do to make this thing successful? And the first thing is that I need to have the respect and trust of these people. So coming from Panjam, where, there was some success, the company had grown its bottom line almost tenfold, so there was some respect there. The fact that I came in and sat with the leaders in that company and asked them, what is it that this company needs? What is it that I can contribute to this company? I was open-minded, and I listened to them, and gradually, it didn't happen overnight, became more and more accepted as they saw that I respected what they had done. And together we worked out a path forward that was even better than where they were before. So it comes right down to acknowledging that you alone can't do this thing. You need to recruit persons to help. It's called leverage. Leverage allows you as an individual to achieve a whole lot more because you have the support of people with you.
Thank you. All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much.